Welcome back to another video of the channel. My name is Julio. Thanks for tuning in. Before we get started, like, subscribe, hit the notification button, and let's get down to business. So today we're going to be talking about HSRP and the advantages it provides to the network. Before we get into the lab, let's get inside the details. So Host Standby Router Protocol, HSRP, is a Cisco proprietary redundancy protocol that ensures network uptime by allowing multiple routers to work together as a single virtual default gateway. If the active router fails, a standby router automatically takes over, providing transparent, uninterrupted traffic flow. Key components and mechanisms. Active standby roles. Router in an HSRP group use priority default 100 to elect an active router. The highest priority wins. If tied, the highest IP address takes precedence. Virtual IP, VIP. Hosts are configured with a single virtual IP address as their default gateway, rather than the physical IP on a specific router. Failover process. The standby router listens for hello messages from the active router, sent every 3 seconds by default. If these messages cease for a whole time, default 10 seconds, the standby router assumes the active role and inherits the virtual IP MAC, causing no disruption on end devices. States. HSRP routers move through states: initial, learn, listen, speak, standby, and active. Versions. HSRP version 1 uses multicast 224.0.0.2 and 0000.0C07.ACXX max. HSRP version 2 with better functionality uses 224.0.0.102 and supports IP version 6. HSRP version 2 also provides millisecond level timers for faster failover and extends VLAN group range. HSRP version 2 uses 0000.0C9F.FXXX max. Preemption. If configured, a higher priority router that comes back online can preempt, take back the active role from a lower priority current active router. Alright, so let me break it down to you. PC is going to be connected on switch 1. Now, where the magic is going to happen is on R1 and R2. R1 is going to be our HSRP active router, and R2 is going to be our HSRP standby router. We are also going to configure IP SLA track towards Google DNS 8.8.8.8, and I will configure this track under our HSRP configuration on R1. I'm going to provoke a failover by just shutting down Ethernet 0/0 interface on R1, which is our WAN interface. This way, it will no longer receive proofs from Google DNS, and you will see that R2 will be elected as the active HSRP router, which is our scope for this lab. Remember, this configuration will only be applied on the LAN side, which is Ethernet 0/1 on both routers. Alright, so here's the command line. We're going to be injecting all the devices. We're going to focus on router 1 and router 2. ISP router is already configured. We're not going to touch it. I'm going to leave the commands here for a couple of seconds, or pause the video if you need to. Now that we covered HSRP essential information, let's hop into CML and let's get started with the lab. Let's get it, guys. Alright, so we're inside CML now. We're going to start configuring the IP addresses assigned to Ethernet 0/0 and 0/1. We're also going to enable HSRP on Ethernet 0/1. We're going to configure the default static route pointing to the ISP router on router number 1. And we're also going to configure the IP SLA with the track. Alright, so let's enable HSRP, standby 1, IP 10.10.10.1, standby 1, preempt, standby 1, priority 250. And remember, the highest priority wins the election. Alright, so let's start configuring the IP SLA. IP SLA 1, ICMP-echo 192.168.1.1, which is our ISP address. And we're gonna source it using 192.168.1.2. Frequency is gonna be 5. Let's start the IP SLA operation. IP SLA schedule 1, live forever, start time now. Alright, so let's configure now the track 1, IP SLA 1, reachability. And we're gonna do a delay down 1 and up 10. Let's configure now our default route, pointing to the 192.168.1.1. And we're gonna also add the track 1 that we created. The status of the track is up. Sweet. Let's go to Ethernet 0/1, standby 1, track 1, decrement 160. Alright, so here's what the decrement command does. I hard-coded 160, right? So if you take 250 minus 160, it's gonna equal to 90. So that's what's gonna happen if track 1 goes down on router number 1. It's gonna lower the priority from 250 to 90, which is gonna help router number 2, which is configured with the default priority of 100, to be elected as the active router on our HSRP domain. Alright, so we're done with router number 1. Let's jump into router number 2 now. We're gonna configure Ethernet 0/0 and 0/1 with the corresponding IP address. We're also gonna enable on Ethernet 0/1 HSRP, and we're also gonna configure the default route. Alright, so let's enable HSRP on Ethernet 0/1, standby 1, IP 10.10.10.1, standby 1, preempt. Alright, so let's finish configuring the default route. Let's verify the default route on the show IP route command. Sweet. Let's do a ping test. 192.168.2.1. We got our response. Great. And this router has been elected as the standby router. Awesome. Alright, so let's jump into our virtual machine now. Let's type in our password, which is going to be Cisco. And let's open up our terminal. I'm going to perform a trace route to the 8.8.8.8. And you're gonna see on the trace route that we're gonna first jump to the 10.10.10.2, which is router number 1, to reach 8.8.8.8. Now remember, my virtual machine is configured with the default gateway of 10.10.10.1, which is the virtual IP that we're using on the HSRP domain. Alright, so let's jump into router number 1 and let's shut down Ethernet 0/0 and let's see what happens. Alright, so track 1 went down, and as you can see, the state of the HSRP on router number 1 changed from active to standby. Let's verify router number 2 now. And as you can see, router number 2 was elected as the active router on the HSRP domain. Awesome. Alright, so let's jump in once again to our virtual machine and let's do a trace route again to the 8.8.8.8. Okay, we should see the 10.10.10.3, which is router number 2, to complete the trace route. And we do. Awesome. So this is going to be all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please give it a like. And as always, this is Julio. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.